Welcome back to Notballtalk. It's your host Dietrich. Back at you with another one. You got your co-host Keith. And today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest trades that happened on this offseason with the upcoming 2024 NFL season. Stefon Diggs going to the Houston Texans. We're going to be talking about expectations, how we think he'll fit into his role there, and also what does the future hold for one of the best wide receivers in the league. So the first question we're going to have for you guys today is, do you guys think that Stefon Diggs will still be wide receiver one in the Houston Texans offensive role? My opinion, I think yes. I still think he's going to be wide receiver one. Nothing has changed. Diggs is a very proven wide receiver in the league, one of the best wide receivers in the league, one of the best route runners in the league, one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league. And I think he's still going to show up and show out down there with the Texans with another young, great quarterback that they have down there in CJ Stroud. I think the game also opened up more for him because Stefon Diggs is used to working with the wide receiver 2 on his side, and with the Vikings, he had Adam Thielen. He had Adam Thielen, and then in the Texans, with the Bills, he had Gabriel Davis, who kind of around the same tier, kind of like
wide receiver 3 than he is a wide receiver.
Who?
Gabriel Davis. He is. Come on, you. The Jags currently have him as wide receiver 1, and everybody treats that as a clown show.
Okay, he's a cool wide receiver too.
He is, but I'm saying, like, if you had to look at it, you'd feel more comfortable with him starting as your wide receiver 3 than you would as your wide receiver 1. Do not give Gabe Davis. He has one game that you're thinking about. One.
Bro, he could be a wide receiver too, bro.
No, I'm not saying he's
with a good wide receiver 1, bro. He's a wide receiver 2. I'm not hearing that. And he had a good wide receiver 1, so he looked like a great wide receiver 2.
Gabe Davis is a very unserious NFL player.
Oh my god, bro. Okay, anyways, bro. Okay, wide receiver 3, cool. And like I was saying, he still had weapons in Baltimore to where he would still be getting open looks. But I feel with the Houston Texans, this is probably the best talent. Let's say the most talented offense he's been in, to where he's a wide receiver 1. He has a great quarterback, but we played with some good quarterbacks in some great quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins, who was, good for what he was. A good running back in Joe Mixon. I don't really think he had that much of a run game in the Bills, but he had Josh Allen back there. He was running the ball himself. He had Dalvin Cook when he was with the Vikings. But now he also has Nico Collins and Tank Dell, which are 2 great young wide receivers, and he has Dalton Schultz in the tight end. And they just have a good team down there. So I think this will open up the game for him more a little bit, but it also would take some looks away from him. But nonetheless, I still think he'll be wide receiver 1. What do you think about it?
No, yeah, I agree with you. I think wide receiver 1 is the role he'll play. I think he'll have cornerback 1 go mainly guarding him. I don't think nobody will follow him just because of the loaded talent that they have on both sides, inside and out. But I do think because of, the chemistry that CJ and Nico were able to build last year and the trust that they were able to build, deep balls and certain, scramble drill plays, that I do think I don't think he will, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the season, Nico Collins took that wide receiver role and Diggs stepped to that second role, that wide receiver 2 role, and became less dependent on by Stroud because Nico Collins continued to take a stride. I think Nico Collins played he was a top 15 wide receiver last year when it was all said and done. And I think he can continue that stride just off of the chemistry that they have and, the trust that they've been able to build. But I do think what Diggs has been able to done and, him being 30 now is going to start to play a part. I don't think he's as much of a deep threat as he was. And I think that deep threat ability was what allowed him to be that one. And I think, when it comes to short area quickness and route running, 20 yards and in, I think Diggs is still, and probably until he retires, will be one of the best at it. But when it comes to, those deeper plays where you got to go 25, 30 plus yards down the field, I think they'll leave more of that area to Tank and Nico because, that them younger legs. And obviously, Diggs is going to have big plays. This is not me not saying Diggs won't have big plays. But what I do think is that they'll rely more on Nico and Tank to get those bigger chunk plays because Diggs is more of a reliable, short, quick option than Nico Collins is to be in that wide receiver role. Like, you're not going to have Nico Collins running whip routes and 10-yard ends and beating their guys consistently. You'll have Diggs winning those. But beating a guy full stride downfield, I'm taking Nico to do it every day.
So you basically saying that you think Nico Collins is going to take a wide receiver one?
Post whatever their bye week is, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
So you're saying after the bye week, Stefon Diggs will no longer be wide receiver one. It will be Nico Collins' job.
I don't think it's just going to be like a quick change off, but I do think you will.
It's going to be a gradual. It's going to be a gradual change.
It's going to gradually go back to Nico being the wide receiver one. It's not a talent thing to Diggs. I think him getting in this era of his football career, he's had his time where he was an upsending wide receiver 2 with Minnesota. Then he took his wide receiver 1 role with Buffalo, and I think he's going to go back to that. He's still going to be the highest. It's like wide receiver 2 is not a bad thing. You look at Devontae Smith. No, 2.
He was a wide receiver 2 in Minnesota.
Diggs?
Yeah.
Who was yeah, Adam Thielen was the one. I mean, toward the end of it, yeah,
Adam Thielen was wide receiver 1?
Like let's really put some respect on what Adam Thielen was doing, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Yo, that's tough. That's tough.
Like it wasn't like, because you got like Diggs was drafted as a 5th round pick, and granted, yes, he came in and performed, but he didn't come and perform and just automatically be wide receiver 1. Like, he had to progress to that, and by the end of his Minnesota tenure, was he wide receiver 1? Yes, but for a good margin of his time in Minnesota, 100%, I'd give that wide receiver role to Adam Thielen. Don't judge me. Like,
no, bro, no. So you're basically saying for most of the time in Minnesota,
no, Adam was not better than Stefon Diggs.
No, not better. You're saying most of the time in Minnesota, Adam Thielen was wide receiver 1 over Stefon Diggs.
Up until like the last 2 years of his career.
Okay.
It's not crazy to say. Like, him and Kirk just had that connection. Like, part of being a wide receiver 1 is having that chemistry, that connection with your quarterback. You look at all these great wide receivers like Devontae when he was with Green Bay. Him and A-Rod, he had that QB, he had the connection. Like, even with Jordy, when A-Rod had Jordy Nelson was his wide receiver 1. You wouldn't look at Jordy Nelson and say you're a prototypical wide receiver 1, but you want to know why he was able to be a wide receiver 1? Was because A-Rod was a phenomenal quarterback, and he had a phenomenal quarterback have all of his trust in him. When you have a quarterback who has all of your trust, sometimes it just takes a 60-yard go ball. You might not have beat your guy, but he says, I'm just going to give you a chance. And that's when the guys separate. I don't think Diggs is at that point in his career where he can still go up and win those 50-50 balls downfield, like I think Nico Collins can. That's just me personally.
All right, okay. I respect it. That's crazy. I didn't know Adam Thielen was wide receiver 1. Maybe like rookie year, I might give you that. But like after, that's tough. Anyways, another thing that also happened with Stefon Diggs was when he signed with the Texans. I think him and the Texans agreed on his last 3 years of the contract. It's non-existent no more, right?
Yeah, it's gone. He's free this year.
So they cut it 3 years. The last 3 years of his 4 year of his contract. So this year he's basically on a 1 year deal with the Texans. How do you think that kind of affect Diggs? And how do you think that affect the Texans? That basically how after they cut his contract from a 4 year to a 1 year deal, how do you think that affects Stefon Diggs, and how do you think that affects the Houston Texans?
I would have liked this a lot more for the Texans if they did it and were allowed to get a conditional pick from if Diggs would have hit free agency. But even if Diggs hits free agency now, they don't get any draft picks from it. So I kind of like it a little bit less. But for a receiver that's 30, you got to you can go look at the track records of receivers 30 plus. Like they tend to go on a downhill path. And, when you look at the receiver room between Nico Collins and Tank Dell, Noah Brown, those are all younger guys. And yeah, Stefon Diggs is now the vet in that room. But if Diggs comes in this year and implodes, and now I got 3 years to deal with a 31-year-old Stefon Diggs who's on a decline, now what am I going to do? Versus if I can get you to be, regardless of you being on a downward path or whatnot. I can make it to where all the pressure is now on you. You have to perform. If you want another deal after this, you now have to perform this year. You have to show that you can work well with CJ, that you can be a leader for Nico and Tank. There's all these precursors that you're going to have to show this year for me to continue to extend you. Because then now you got to look at it. If Diggs doesn't resign with Houston, he'll be 31 next season. And if he has a downward season, who's going to want to sign a 31-year-old Stefon Diggs who couldn't perform with CJ Stroud and the up and coming Texans? So it kind
Chargers.
of,
Chargers. Go ahead though.
well, that's because y'all suck. But
You're a
it
Giants fan.
is it with the way the Texans are, they've realized that they can maximize this window, and it's how all teams are trying to build. Once you realize you got that QB on a rookie contract, you try to maximize everything you can to get that Super Bowl window and capitalize on it. And I think that's really what the Texans are trying to do is just capitalize. They saw what they needed to from Stroud. Stroud's a top 10 guy. I don't really think anybody sees him falling out of the top 10 anytime soon. And if you have a guy like that, you want to be able to make sure. Yes, Nico and Tank were good for him, but Tank's coming off injury, and Nico was really his only viable, consistent option. Noah Brown was here and there, and
Going
Dalton
shorts.
was also here and there, but there's games where they go non-existent. But now I got a guy who I can bring in to where I got a consistent Nico, and if I can get a consistent Diggs with Tank showing up as much as he could last year, coming back from injury, this with Joe Mixon coming out the backfield, like there's a lot of firepower on this offense. Bobby Slowick showed that he could call a phenomenal offense last year, put Stroud in positions to succeed, and they've got a head coach who isn't really, I need to be hovering over you guys. He trusts that Bobby Slowick and CJ are going to do what they need to do with the offense, and it took them to the playoffs last year. And I think the expectation for this year, it's definitely not Super Bowl or bust, but you have to be league wide, you have to be touted as a serious Super Bowl contender. You can't go out there unless regarding injuries, but you can't go out there and Stroud take a step back with all these new weapons. Diggs goes out there, goes 2 games with maybe a catch and 10 yards, and he's throwing fits. You can't there's things that can go wrong, but you just can't have those with what y'all are trying to do to maximize this Super Bowl window.
Yeah, I think I can agree with some things. I think it does put Diggs in a place to where it's like it makes you perform. But I think also with some players, I think they kind of perform better like in distress with their backs against the wall. You know what I'm saying? But it also gives Diggs a chance to be a free agent really. Because I think he got traded from the Vikings to the Bills, right? Then got extended, and now he got traded from the Bills to the Texans. I think this gives him a chance to, if you want to stay, if you don't want to stay, just still give you a chance to go out there, perform, better yourself. And if you do perform, now you're a free agent next year to where potentially you could really go wherever you want, because if you perform, everybody's going to want you and want to give you, you know what I'm saying, a good deal to
Yeah.
bring you under their team. Yeah, so it gives him the chance to be a free agent since I think forever. He got drafted and instantly just got traded, and has been extended and getting contracted that way. So I think this really allows him to better himself and stuff like that. But like you said, also it puts the Texans in a great place because it's like, okay, let's say if it all does go bad, we just got to deal with you for this 1 year. But if it all goes good, now it's like we kind of letting you not walk, but now it's like I feel like they know what they have to do to where it's like to keep him within arm's reach to bring him back next year if they do get everything they want out of Stefon Diggs. But also like if they're winning, he's going to come back. There's no question, because who would want to walk away from a winning program? You know what I'm saying? To where they're around other talents, where their job is easier. He's not seeing a lot of double teams. He's not seeing a lot of safety help, because you have to respect Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, and Noah Brown, who's probably going to be wide receiver 4. So it's a lot of things you have to respect, and see this Stroud throwing the ball, distributing to everybody with a good run game back there. Well, a decent run game, and Joe Mixon. They still got Damian Pierce, right?
Yeah.
He's not nothing great, but he's
He's a serviceable backup though.
a good backup to get a, you know what I'm saying, to give Joe Mixon a breather. So they have a good thing going on down there to where it's like it does leave the Texans, and it puts them in the right position, the right place, to where they're not doing anything that's going to hurt them in the long run.
They did
Basically.
lose
So
Devin Singletary though.
you said they did what?
They lost Devin Singletary though.
That's not a loss on the Texans.
Yeah,
Yeah, they didn't lose. They didn't lose him.
I'm trolling.
Yeah, yeah. I
None
wonder
of my
where did he go again?
free agency.
The free agency. Oh, okay, yeah.
He's still there. Don't worry. We move
He's still
on.
free agency. I feel like he replaced one of them top running backs who was in the free agency. I can't remember who he didn't replace Josh Jacobs. Um, dang, what's that guy who wore that white and blue from
Hey,
Penn State?
all I know is I got a better 26 in New York right now.
Okay. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Yeah. So I think it's a good situation for both Texans and Diggs. But it could be bad on some parts the way you look at it, the way the whole season pans out. But it's just something we just got to wait and see. But I'm definitely excited to watch the Texans. I'm definitely excited to watch Stefon Diggs with that young unit with CJ Stroud and for his new number. I'm very excited to see him back in that number one. Now, one of the biggest questions now with Stefon Diggs going to the Texans is what are the expectations for the Texans this season, in your opinion? I think off his pure talent, off a pure roster, like I said, with no injuries, anything like that, I believe the Texans probably have, you could say, the third or fourth best team in the AFC. I would give it to them, most definitely. You can say they're a top five lock best team in the AFC, no question about it.
Yeah, I think it's divisional or bust. Like you got to win a playoff game, and I understand losing. The following round you could get a bad matchup, Baltimore, the Jets. Like there's a lot of talented teams in the AFC, but you at least have to win one and show. And really, I could even argue really two because you won one last year, so it wouldn't even be like you were making progress. You were just staying on the same plane that you were last year. And especially when you got better to the degree that they did, you want to always show progression. So that's why I'd say I'd even argue that they have to win that divisional round because you got to show that you belong with all these guys in the AFC. You got the Jets, you got Baltimore, you got Kansas City. Like there are some high-powered squads in the AFC. Like the NFC ain't what the AFC is. So if
Yeah.
you're gonna make the moves like tier one teams do, you have to prove yourself to be one of those tier one teams. And last year the Texans and they even came out and say that a lot of their moxie came from being an underdog. Well, you're not an underdog anymore. So are you still going to be able to go be the favorites in every game and still deliver a win? Are you still going to be able to go against KC, the Jets, Baltimore in their house and beat them in their house? So there's a lot of questions that are there to be asked when you try to put yourself in that tier, and the only people to answer them are Houston.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I agree. Divisionals are bust. Anything over divisionals, I think like okay, that's more so like letting the world know like yeah we here. But I think divisional is a perfect divisional round is a perfect floor. Well, a perfect goal for the Texans to where it's like, you know what I'm saying, even though talent wise, that's a Super Bowl roster team right there. But
Oh yeah,
they still have to mesh together, build chemistry together and stuff like that. But off of pure just roster alone, that's a Super Bowl talent roster right there. But do you think the Texans are still a top five team? Or if they are a top five team, where do you have them at?
I think they're for sure a top five team. I think they got better defensively. I'm not like they added Daniil Hunter, and I like that. I like that addition to go along with Will Anderson. Like people don't really talk about it enough. Like he might be on the later part of his career, but he still there's a lot of like the mechanics and the little things that from being a experienced edge rusher who's eclipsed 15 plus sacks in his career, he can show Will Anderson, okay, this is how we do it, and this is how you win certain ways. So I think they're top five for sure. But I think with just being so young and having so many questions, I'd probably have them on the back end of that top five because other teams that I got in the top are like Baltimore, Kansas City, who else would be in the top? I think I'd have Detroit up there.
No,
San
just AFC, just AFC.
Francisco, AFC. Yeah, I'd have
Yeah.
the Jets up there.
Who?
Uh, the Jets.
Top five?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting A Rod back. You're getting that defense was probably top two, top three last year. Like the only thing wrong with them was that they were just missing a quarterback. Now it's the Jets, so the Jets can always jet. But if we're going based off roster wise, yeah, I take the Jets roster over the Texans. especially with the draft coming up. Like if they could add Brock Bowers or like Romo Doomsday, I'd definitely take them over
So
the.
you got the Jets as a top 5 team in the AFC right now when Aaron Rodgers come back. Okay.
Yeah, I think what was we were just talking about AFC. The Buffalo one hurt because you can't put them up there no more.
Buffalo not top
Like
5.
I
Buffalo
because you
not top
see,
5.
I think my back end tier, like I think the top tier for the top three teams I got are Buffalo, not Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, and the Jets. But then when I look at the last three for top five in ASC, I got the tier that I'm putting them in is with the Colts, the Colts and the Browns. And yes, you don't think they're talented teams, but if you go back and look at both those teams last year, first of all, the Colts made it with Gardner Minshew, and or they didn't. No, they didn't make it. They lost in the last game, but they exceeded every expectation. And if they didn't lose to the Texans in that last game, they would have made it to the playoffs. And then
I'll
you got
give
and then you got the Browns, who had all the injuries in the world and still had the best defense. And on offense, they've got the best O line. Lost Nick Chubb, lost their starting QB, had a 39-year-old at QB, and still was winning playoff games and making noise. So these are still good. They might not have the quarterback talent that those top three teams that I mentioned have, but I do think foundationally, all the Browns and the Colts, they definitely got a good foundation to go off of going into next year.
I will give you the Browns is definitely a good team. Excuse me. I think the Colts is a good team. Do not get me wrong, but I just think they have another step or two before I could put them in
Yeah,
it.
it's
Like
really like it's the Houston's before both of them.
yeah,
But when I say in that tier, like if someone was to be like, okay, if Anthony Richardson took a step, which I believe he will, I think that defense will continue to get better. And I think I can definitely see a situation to where we're sitting on a pod in a couple months and we're saying how the Colts are better than the Texans because of maybe injuries hit them or they just aren't connecting chemistry wise as everybody predicts that they will.
okay. I'm not going to disagree with it. Like I could because we would never know what would like we can't predict the future. So in that instance, I can see what you're saying a little bit, but okay, yeah. But the Browns, I like the Browns. I think that defense is definitely holding them up a lot because you could have you could only have so much success with a quarterback who can't perform.
Which is crazy considering they're paying him 230 million.
Yeah, yeah. He's definitely getting off. So I mean, it's I mean, I don't know the Browns, but they definitely are. You know what I'm saying? Still doing what they're doing, and you're getting a kind of Nick Chubb who's come back off a bad injury. That I
Yeah.
think happened twice to that same leg already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something of that
it's
nature.
going to be tough for him to come back from that injury.
Yeah, I
But
mean, but prayers up to him and stuff like that. Though. But yeah, I mean, your rankings isn't too far off from mine. But yeah, I get what you're saying. No, so we saying yeah, they're top 5 team for sure, top 5 lock, and that they should be divisional round or bust. That should definitely be a goal. Now, the last thing that I want to end off with this episode is we're gonna play we're gonna have 2 different scenarios right here. And one crystal ball right here, we're gonna say everything goes good for the Texans. Everything's go good for the Texans. Everything will go for Stefon Diggs. Let's just say AFC Championship. They end up losing to Baltimore in the AFC Championship by like a field goal, not the offense fault. Now in this crystal ball, let's say the season doesn't go well. Let's say they lose in a wild card round, and Diggs didn't perform exactly how they would go. So in this one right here, what do you think the future will be for Stefon Diggs? Do you think he's running it back with the Texans, or do you think he's leaving?
I think they'd sign him to a 2-year deal, bring him back, try to capitalize on the momentum that they have. Something similar like Detroit, where we're a young team, and if they got to the AFC Championship, he definitely played a part in it. So they would re-sign him to a 2-year, probably structure it to where they could get out after that first year. But I definitely think they wouldn't let that go and try to keep the momentum going into that next year.
And so in this one right here, where everything doesn't go as good, and let's say losing like a wild card or a divisional round, what do you think will happen with Stefon Diggs then?
Yeah, I think at that point, that's when they say, well, I still think, if they make it to the wild card or make it to the divisional and lose. That means Diggs had to do relatively something. I think they'll let him test the market, but I think it'll be one of those things where it's like, okay, we'll let you test, but we definitely want to let you know we still have interest in you coming back. So it wouldn't be one of those things where it's like, yeah, you just, we used you for a 1 year rental and we're gonna let you go. I think it'd be more so, we're gonna let you do it because we want it, but what's best for the player, but we also do want you to know we want you back here to continue what we're building.
So basically, you think in any situation, Stefon Diggs is still going to be coming back after this year?
For him to not come back, I think they would have to probably not make the playoffs and also not make it by quite a few games. Because by that point, for him to not, because for them to trade for him, they gave up a second round pick this year. And a second round pick for a 30-year-old receiver, you go look at what Amari Cooper was giving up for, or any big wide receiver, what they were traded for.
Keenan Allen.
A fifth rounder, but they gave a second rounder for Diggs, where a lot of people were arguing they almost gave up too much for Diggs. Yeah. And when people are saying those kinds of things, you kind of got to look at it. Yeah, we may have given up too much, but people won't say that if in 2 years, 3 years, Diggs is still a high contributor on this team, or if we won a ring with Diggs, they won't say that. But if you give up a second rounder for a 30-year-old Asian receiver, regardless of what you think of him, there's still some things and some risks that can come from it.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Like I said, I think he'll probably stay in there for another year or two after this year because, like you said, I don't think they're going to use him for a 1 year rental. It's Stefon Diggs we're talking about. I still think Stefon Diggs is going to get probably 1,000 yards, around 8, 9-ish touchdowns. Well, I don't know. His touchdowns may take a little drop. It depends how pass heavy they are in that offense. But yeah, I still think he's going to be in that 1K club.
CJ Stroud will hit 5,000 this year. I'm sure of that, though.
Yeah, he should throw for 5,000. You got 3 talented receivers around you and a tight end. I think he's going to go throw for 5,000 for sure. But yeah, anything else?
Let's see y'all at the mock draft.
Yep, that's all we got for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in to Notballtalk. It's your host Dietrich. We'll catch you guys next time.
He passed me the ball. He never passed me the ball.